Hello and welcome to this episode of the Business Spotlight. Today we are joined by Sarah. Hiya, Sarah.
Hi, Mark.
Thanks very much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Pleasure. So, if you're joining us for the first time, the Business Spotlight is a place for you to find out a little bit more about business, or more specifically, today, a little bit more about Sarah's business. And if you're thinking of getting in business, or if you're already on that entrepreneurship journey, you're in the right place. So, Sarah, if you could just kick things off for us by letting our audience know who you are, what you do, and how long you've been doing it for, please.
Thank you very much, Mark. So I'm Sarah. I've just turned 40 years old. I originate from Leeds, in Yorkshire, but when I was 19, I moved to London and I never left. And 4 years ago, we moved to Hitchin. I'm a mother to 7-year-old twins. I married a guy called Tim, and we're having our 10-year wedding anniversary. We have a gigantic golden doodle puppy called Bramble. And I started my career as an architect. I graduated in 2007 from UCL in London, and I won the RIBA International Award for Drawing. I then went on and was an architect in London for 15 years. I became a director in my early 30s, and then in 2020, I started to suffer from insomnia. And that was the catalyst to me starting up a business in my real passion, which is drawing. So now I am an architectural artist.
Wow, what an amazing journey. That's fantastic. Well, look, I've got loads of questions around that, but I'm really interested to find out more about the drawings and what would you say makes you, I don't know, what would you say makes you stand out from anybody else out there doing something similar, Sarah?
So I guess why my drawings kind of stand out is they're rooted in a technical architectural drawing style that I've honed across my profession as an architect. But what they do is they combine that kind of technical, precise skill of using like a 0.03 of a mil pen. So it's an incredibly fine pen, but then they mingle that and combine it with watercolor and acrylics and pencil sketching. So it kind of combines a freedom, but with a precision. And I use that as a skill set to capture kind of spaces and places and people and memories. So I tend to work to commission. I'm coming up to do my 130th commission of kind of capturing these things. And then I also do, because it's so detailed and really intricate, I do tiny drawings in 40 mil by 40 mil squares, which I stock at a range of places across the country.
Wow, that's amazing. And you're just about to do your 130th commission. That's brilliant. Congratulations on that. And I mean, obviously, I've had the pleasure of seeing some of your work. And for those of you that are watching this today, you will get an opportunity to see some of that a little bit later. So stick with us on that. But Sarah, just share with the audience, if you will, just the thought behind the business in you know the inception of the business, and also sort of give us a bit of a whistle stop tour of the journey so far.
So the business has initially grown very organically. So when I started to suffer from insomnia, I carried on with my previous career for 2 years. My insomnia got really bad. I was averaging around 10 hours sleep a week. It was very extreme. And I tried a lot of therapy. I tried a lot of medication, and none of it would work. And in the end, I made probably the most difficult decision I've made, which was to resign from my role and to take some time. And in doing that, I just didn't know what to do with myself, from going from a kind of full-time career to having time, but also not being in a great place. Like, it wasn't like my sleep returned the day after I left my job. It was a much more involved process. So I walked into town where I live in Hitchin with a sketchbook and a pen, and I drew a coffee shop. The coffee shop is called the Coffee Lab. And it was a friend's favorite coffee shop, and I gave her the drawing as a birthday present. And she was like, "Oh my gosh, Sarah, like, you need to do this." Like, and I'd not really drawn since I was 19, so good kind of 15 years. And so yeah, I just started getting commissions and I started drawing. And as I drew, I started to sleep. And the more I drew and the more intricate the drawings were, the more I got lost in it. And again, the more consistent my sleep came back. So I guess it was rooted in a recovery. So to start with, it was my outlet and my tool for getting better. But then what I realized was if I wanted to keep doing it, businesses don't organically just grow to become profitable. What it needed was me to kind of start putting it out there and kind of slowly making steps to create a studio and a limited business. And so I guess that's what I started doing. So in 2022, I created a limited company and I set up a website. And probably the biggest thing I did was put my first drawing on Instagram. And as somebody who's not really used social media, was really nervous about kind of sharing it with the world. It for many would probably be a very small step, but for me at that moment, it was a very big step, but it has been the catalyst for me being able to grow it and have a presence and a portfolio that people can find.
Wow, I think that's going to resonate with an awful lot of our listeners and viewers, Sarah, because I know quite a few people that I've spoken to in the past that have had that apprehension or a little bit of anxiety even of putting something out, into the big wide world, especially on social like Insta and stuff. So the fact that you've taken that brave step, congratulations, and look at you now.
Well, yeah, I don't know. But yeah, it's a funny world, isn't it, social media? It has many negatives, but it also has amazing benefits as a new company. It's free. It has, a huge amount of people looking at it. And even, I don't have a huge account. I think I have 1,300 followers. In the world of Instagram, it's tiny. But actually for me, I get maybe 20,000 views a month, which again in Instagram land is nothing. But for me as an individual, of that number of people seeing my artwork, it's been enough for me to sustain myself full time in business for 2 years, which is, phenomenal. And so yeah, it's been a real outlet. And actually I've quite enjoyed the creative side of working out how to visually capture and show my artwork.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that's a great share, and I think that's key. So, what would you say, Sarah, is going to be some of the challenges you're going to be facing going forwards, and what are the plans for the future?
So a big priority of mine has been to work out how to shift from being a service to being a product. My background as an architect is very much that you employ me for my skill set. And a part of me having so many commissions is that I've been employed to draw as my skill set. But my other parallel area of my business is to grow me selling hand finished fine art prints, which on a profitability level is better for me because of the time spent. And so it's looking at running them in parallel. But obviously that's a whole other kind of strategy of how you market a product, how you sell a product, how you get a product stocked. And so that's been a real focus, because even though the online stuff is good, there's nothing like seeing a piece of artwork in person to purchase it. And that's where having it stocked allows it to do. And I've got 7 stockists now across the country, and they sell well, it works well. But where it gets complicated and difficult, the product world for a small business, is that you lose a lot of the money. So I lose between 50 to 60% of sales to the shop owner or the gallery. And that's commonplace. And I understand they've got overheads, but obviously as a small business, I'm having to absorb that cost. And so it's trying to then grow it, but make it profitable, because there's no point me growing it if I don't make enough profit from it. So getting that balance is what I'm stepping into. And one of my key focuses to date has been to stock independent stores, where I really kind of feel a kinship to their ethos, which has been fantastic. But I also want to look at that kind of same ethos, but on stores that are more nationally seen. So one of my key focuses has been National Trust. Brilliantly, they have confirmed that they're going to start stocking me at the Wimpole Hall. And I've just been completing all the forms for that. And that is another level of rigor that I'm having to kind of look at, and making sure I hit kind of environmental targets as well of the business, which is really interesting. They also take more profit. So, you know, as you think, oh, this is brilliant, I get this wider platform, and then you have to kind of work out again how you kind of can make it work.
Wow. So it sounds like it's been a fun and fruitful journey so far with lots of things to learn along the way, right?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I think the most beneficial thing I think somebody told me when I was embarking on it a few years ago is it's setting up a business isn't like winning the lottery. It's not like you wake up one day and this thing has kind of flourished into this huge, you know, beast of a machine. It's actually just lots of little steps that, you know, gradually build up over time. And if you reflect back a year, 2 years, a lot of people say to me 7 years, you know, you really got to kind of give these businesses time, and you've got to back yourself and grow it. And I think, yeah, that's what I've realized, that you need to, yeah, give it space.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. And that's a great share. And I'm sure, again, it's going to really resonate with a lot of our viewers and listeners. So, Sarah, moving on to yourself then as the business owner, what would you say have been some of the biggest lessons that you've learned along the way so far?
I think the biggest lesson I've learned is that you've got to back yourself. That however good my drawings are, and however high quality my work is, the world isn't going to turn around and say, I really want Sarah Custance in my store. I really want her to do me a commission, because we're bombarded with stuff all the time. And, you know, there's so many different products out there that are brilliant. And there's so many fantastic artists that to carve a bit of the pie for yourself, you've kind of got to do it yourself. And that's having the confidence to literally, for me, walk into stores and say, this is my artwork. Would you be prepared to stock it? And if I get no response, to go back. I think 3 of my stockers, it's on the 3rd time that they've been like, yeah, we'd love to. But just the first 2, they were busy unpacking an order, or something else was coming in, or, you know, and it's almost having that confidence of just keeping going. And yeah, having the confidence that just because the world doesn't come to you doesn't mean there isn't a place for you in the world.
Wow, I love that. That's a great piece of advice, and I think there's a lot of people out there and business owners that would be on par with that, saying, you know, having that resilience and tenacity in business is are some of the key attributes that you do need to grow and build businesses. So that's a great lesson. Thank you for that share. So, Sarah, if we were able to go back in time, and I don't own a DeLorean or any other time machines that we could potentially do this, but if we were able to go back in time and we were going to go back and we were going to visit an 18-year-old Sarah, you get to give yourself one piece of advice, one golden nugget. What would it be?
I think it would be allow your career to squiggle. I started in my 20s very much feeling that I was on a career ladder, that I would step on it as an architect. I'd work my way up through the system, and I would become a director. And yeah, it would take this kind of quite linear trajectory. And I think what I've learned is that's not always the case, and that's not always a negative. And being able to step off that escalator can have incredible benefits. And yeah, I
I
think that's.
love that. Allow your career to squeal. I love that. That's brilliant.
I can't say I came up with it. There's a book called this, I think it's called The Squiggly Career, and it's really good. And I think it's especially good as a woman who, you know, has children and has maternity leave and then goes on to suffer burnout, that, you know, life isn't always one constant trajectory, and that's okay.
That's brilliant. So, sorry, what was the name of the book?
I can't remember totally. I'm sorry. I will let you know, and you can add.
Okay, we'll make sure that we get that information before
Yeah.
we put this out. Great stuff. Okay, well, listen, I mean, Sarah, I've seen some of the work that you've done, and it's fantastic, phenomenal, and inspirational. And on that note, what I want to know is someone that's able to create the art that you do. What is it that inspires you? What is it that really puts that fire in your belly to do what you do day in, day out, week in, week out?
So I think what's been incredible and has kept me drawing is the stories that people have brought to me with the commission. So rarely is a drawing like, can you draw my house or can you draw a park? There is reason and there is memory and there is a narrative to each of those things that, you know, we build and we create spaces out of bricks and mortar, but actually they become so much more. They become our family homes, they become where we celebrate, where we mourn. And I think each time I get a new commission, I always have a one-to-one conversation with someone for 20 minutes to really understand the reason behind the drawing and what's inspired them to want to capture something. And that has been really inspirational. Yeah, even one that comes to mind that was a favorite is a gentleman came to me and he wanted a drawing of Hitchin Market Square, looking at a specific shop. And he was like, oh, you know, I don't think I need to talk through it. I was like, I'd love to know more. And he explained it was because he had a nervousness of going into enclosed spaces and his mother was elderly. So he always took her in a wheelchair and sat in that one spot and looked at that shop, and it gave him companionship. It gave him company. It gave him a sense of purpose. And his mum had passed away, and he wanted to be able to remember that view, and he wanted to be able to have his mother's wheelchair in the drawing and a seat of his sister who'd also passed away. And being able to kind of combine those kind of stories into one 2D drawing is really inspiring in itself.
Wow, I love that. That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing that with us. That's great. Thanks, Sarah. So, Sarah, I mean, usually wrapping things up, I usually ask if there's a best way for people to contact you, a website, and you know, people are going to want to find out more about you and your business. But because of what you do, I think we'd be doing it an injustice if we didn't allow the audience that are watching this, because I know some of our audience are going to be listening as well. So go and watch it on YouTube if you are just listening. But are you able to share your screen and show us some of the commissions that you've done, Sarah?
Totally. Let me just see if this works. Can you see that, Mark?
I can, yeah, fantastic.
Okay, brilliant. So this is a beautiful castle in Scotland. This is actually another spot in Scotland where Rhodey and Suzanne got married. So this drawing kind of pictures this castle that sits on a hilltop and this cavernous space that is where the ceremony was held. This is a villa in Ibiza. A conversion of a barn up in York. So this combines kind of an external, internal elevation and a perspective. This piece is Hengrave Hall, I think, yeah, in Suffolk. This piece is 3 different layers of landscape that builds up a couple who've recently got married. So where they were born is at the top, both of their kind of original family homes. And then in the middle is where they met, which was in Dubai. And then in the bottom is where they got married, which was in Australia. And it's looking at these kind of 3 different peninsulas that have brought their lives together. And these are an example of my micro drawings. So these are ones of a local town called Baldock. So each is drawn in a 40mm by 40mm square. And this is of a brewery that is in Letchworth. So each is kind of hand finished with gold detailing, and I stock these at a number of stores. I also do a lot of single line drawings, which are a really amazing way to capture people and places. And so this is a family walking down a streetscape, which on the left-hand side is made up of a street in Hitchin, which is their favorite restaurant, and the right is from a Japanese anime film, which is their favorite film they watch. So it's about combining them in this scape. And I think this is the final one I put together, which is another line drawing of a couple getting married, and in the backdrop are the key spaces of their life. So kind of where they met, where they honeymooned, their cat, a memorable hot air balloon ride in the distance. Yeah, so there you go, a little taster of my work.
Wow, that's absolutely amazing. And I'm just gobsmacked. The pictures, the drawings that you showed there. Did you say 40mm by 40mm?
Yeah, the little ones, yeah. Yeah.
Wow, that's tiny. That's less than like 2 inches square, right?
Yeah. So my pens are tiny, so they're like yeah, under 1/10 of a mil. Like they're really, really fine. So yeah, it allows you to draw in tiny spaces because yeah, you can get detail in.
That's amazing. Well, Sarah, it's been an absolute pleasure having you on. And just before I let you go, what's the best way for people to find out more and to contact you, or the website address, please?
Yeah, so I'm most present on Instagram, so it's just Sarah Custance, the joys of having a relatively unusual surname, if not first name. And then I have a website which is just www.sarahcustance.com, and in there's the ability to message me if you want to about any work or commissions, and the same, just direct message me on Instagram.
Fantastic. Sarah, thank you so much for joining us on the Business Spotlight today.
A pleasure. Thank you for having me, Mark.
And thanks for all of our viewers and listeners today. That is a wrap. That's the Business Spotlight. We'll see you all again soon. Take care for now.
See you later.